Welcome, welcome. Whoever's coming in from around the world, just come on in. We're going to get started in just a minute. As you come in, we'd love to know where you're joining us from. So if you could let us know where in the world, because we really do, by the RSVPs, anticipate that we're going to have people joining us from all around the world. So I see Charlene from Pennsylvania. Hello, Charlene. Keep on coming. We have Sacramento. Hello to Joseph, the UK.
Hello, hello there.
Yes, there's Joseph saying hello. Baltimore, oh, this is awesome. Adam from San Jose. Oh, we have Ireland. This is fabulous. Tampa Bay. We're having lots of representation from both sides of the pond today. Tucson. Hello, Tucson. And Dubai. This is absolutely fabulous. So keep coming in. Tell us where you're coming from. Also, we're interested to know, who are you looking to write your book for? Are you looking to write your book for yourself, or are you interested in giving this as a gift? So we have an icebreaker poll that's going up as well. Is it for yourself, for your parents, your grandparents, a spouse, a friend? And as you can also see, we're interested in what stage you're in with your writing your book. Is this just an idea? Have you already started? How much help do you need? And if it's other, if we haven't really described or given you a choice of where you might be in this book journey, please go over to the chat and let us know. And it's just, you know, the modern way of how we're all getting to know each other from around the world right now. Again, as people are joining, we're asking to let us know where you're coming from and fill out our icebreaker poll. Who are you interested in writing this book for? And we have a lot to get to, so we're not going to spend too much time on all this. Hello, Egypt and London and San Diego and a lot from London. I think we're just going to go ahead and get started. You can continue. Memphis, Tennessee. Thank you so much. Let me welcome you officially. Hello, everyone. I'm Daryn Kagan. I'm going to be your host for this webinar. This is a very special day. First of all, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, a belated happy Hanukkah, whatever you might be celebrating or not celebrating. We're thrilled to have you here with us. We've done a couple of these webinars. This one, we're specifically thinking about gift giving. Now, if that's not you, if you're interested in this not being a gift, but just interested in the whole process of StoryTerrace, you still are in the right place. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself, but first I want you to know, as we get going, we have two ways to interact. You've already found the chat function where you were letting me know exactly where you're joining us from. And as we get going and you're going to meet all of our fabulous guests, you might have some questions, either about StoryTerrace or about specific stories that you've heard or specific panelists or how it works. There's a question button at the bottom of Zoom. And you can Q&A, it says. You can click on there and put your questions in. Our fabulous StoryTerrace team is monitoring that file, and we'll get to the questions after we get through our guests. So fabulous. Let's get going. Quickly about me. I said my name is Daryn Kagan. I have a long background in traditional news. There's me and my favorite child, my dog Butter. I'm married with two daughters. I was at CNN for a long time as a news anchor for 12 years. When I left, I started my own media company where I do uplifting and positive storytelling. And one of my big clients is StoryTerrace. I've written quite a few StoryTerrace books with some great StoryTerrace clients. And this opportunity, this webinar, is my chance to kind of put all my stuff together, my broadcasting, my love for StoryTerrace, and my love for interviewing. So that's me. None of us would be here today without the man who started the company. I want to bring in Rutger Bruining. Rutger, what I love about your story, in a place where we love stories, is you took an idea and you took something that was hard in your own life and you did a big career switch and you started this company. Please share with all of us your inspiration for starting StoryTerrace.
Yes, well, they're actually on this page. So it's really nice to look at the photo on the right, because my grandparents are my inspiration. I actually, starting StoryTerrace goes back quite a long time. Can you please mute? Thank you very much. I'm afraid otherwise there's a bit of feedback. So I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. My mom, she worked as an academic and she would read a lot of papers at home. And over the holidays, when I was in school, I would make probably slightly too much noise for her to be able to deep into those papers. So I would spend time with my grandparents, which I really, really enjoyed. And my grandfather was a great storyteller. We would play backgammon, and he would smoke cigars, and we would sit there and he would tell stories about the Second World War. He started a small resistance group in the Netherlands, but also about his travels as a young man, about how he met my grandmother, how they moved to the Caribbean together, where he worked as a doctor. And those stories, they fascinated me, and there were always more details to be told. And no question remained unanswered. But after he passed away, those stories faded so much quicker than I expected. And I really regretted that idea of writing them down, that I'd never done it. So that was really the main reason. The second one was that my grandmother, she lost a lot of family in the war. It was difficult for her to speak about her youth. And I wish I did ask her more questions about her life before she passed away. So from both angles, I had regrets. So I've been thinking for a long time before I started StoryTerrace, why we don't capture the stories of the people we care about, our own stories, and how potentially I could change that.
It's really a woulda, coulda, shoulda story and inspiration, Rutger, isn't it? And look at what you've created. Here we are today, people all over the world, and StoryTerrace has helped people tell stories and write books all over the world. Yes,
we were close to 3,000 books. I'm really, really proud of it. The variety of those books is enormous, as are the people that have joined us today. And we take really great care of approaching every book in an individual way, which is why we work with 700 different writers, so that we can really match people with a writer that fits with not just their background, whether it's professional or cultural, but also their personality.
And you're going to get to meet some of those writers today. Well, Rutger already knows the writers, but you who are joining us on the call, I think you're going to see there are so many different people who have different stories. And that's really one of the fabulous things about StoryTerrace is there is a writer who has an interest that is like yours that can help your story come to life. We thought no better way for you to understand how StoryTerrace works than getting to meet some of our storytellers. And boy, do we have one special family. Well, a couple of special families, but we have one special family I really want to start with. I want to bring in Joseph Fisher and his daughter, Sigrid. Sigrid was the gift giver. So Joseph, hold on. Sigrid, let me bring you in and tell me the inspiration and how you got the idea and came together with StoryTerrace to set up this book for your dad.
I mean, I think I can't actually remember how I came across StoryTerrace, except that it was in an advert or a post or something like that. So that side of the business obviously works very well. But when it popped up, it caught my attention. My dad, my lovely dad here today, is 99 and a half today at the moment. So this was a year or so ago that we started this. I bought it for last Christmas as a present, and I just felt that Dad's done quite a bit of looking into the family history. We have a Jewish heritage, so how did we end up in the UK and all of that? But his own story wasn't captured in a place where it could stay. It was largely with him, and I thought we would like to have it captured forever. We've got the young grandchildren in the family who would like to think that they can find out all about their granddad when they're grown, and they can show the book to show the story to their children and so on. So it was really about capturing it. And the way that we approached it was that I've got a lot of brothers, and I got in touch with them all and said, should we do this as a shared gift to Dad for his Christmas present last year, as completely out of as a surprise. He knew nothing about it, so that was how it started.
Well, let's not wait another second. We have to meet your dad. The biggest challenge of this entire hour is going to be, how do we cut our time with Joseph, because we could spend our entire hour just talking with this fabulous man. Joseph, Merry Christmas. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
What was your reaction, Joseph, when you opened the present last Christmas and your kids are here telling you, we want you to write a book about your life?
Well, I was very surprised and pleased to receive it, of course. It took me a few weeks to decide exactly how I was going to approach it, because as Sigrid says, I was 98 at the time, and I'm on my second marriage, and so I have a grown-up granddaughter, but I also have two very young granddaughters, aged, now they are 4 and 7. And I thought that one day they might turn to their folks and say, I can't remember Granddad very well. Can you tell me something about him? And so with that in mind, I decided to put down some of the things which appear in the book. However, halfway through, I decided that perhaps some of my friends would enjoy it. So I've begun to add things that friends would also enjoy, which also illustrated part of my character. And it's got down very well. In fact, only today I got a Christmas card from somebody, and he says, "We so enjoyed your book. Ever so many thanks." So,
there's so many highlights, Joseph, about your life. One of them is, I understand you have honors from the Queen herself. Is that true?
Yeah. Yes. I was serving in Burma during World War II, and I contracted polio, and in fact was told that I would not have, excuse me, not only have difficulty in walking, but that I would never work, and that's just not my scene at all. So I managed to get through that, and one of the things that I did, I found out, I mean, I'm going back to 1946, 47. You've got to appreciate that the state of the country, everybody was poor. It was a terrible state. And I found that there were people who also had polio who didn't have the advantages that I had. So I got in touch with an organization called it was called infantile paralysis in those days, now the British Polio Fellowship. And they the idea was that they would try and help people with polio. And I got involved with that, and it became very, very successful here in the north of England. And I did all this on a purely voluntary capacity. And I eventually came to the decision that these people needed help to get to work. Have I disappeared?
No, you're there. You're there. I'm going to jump in there, Joseph. Like I said, I would love to speak to you for hours and hours.
Okay.
I want to give people an idea of how this works. So you can have an amazing story like Joseph's, who fought in World War I, who has overcome incredible obstacles, or it could just be what you think is an ordinary life. It really doesn't matter. Stories can help anybody tell their story. But the same thing happens when you get matched with a writer and an editor. And this is really what makes the company so special, the structure that you receive as a storyteller. You're not just out there with just your writer. You get an editor as well. So I'd like to bring in the editor and the writer on the project. First, let's bring in the writer, Karen Russ. So Karen, you got the joy of getting to spend many hours with Joseph.
I did, yeah. No, it was great. And I was several projects in at that time. And obviously when I was told Joseph's age, I wasn't sure, how fast or slow we would be able to go. But yeah, I was struggling to type and keep up with what he was doing half the time. He was amazing. And yeah, it was just a pleasure. We had a lot of laughs while we were working together, and we just went at Joseph's pace. And obviously he's got a very long life, and he has had a very full life. So the project expanded as we went along, because he was enjoying the process. And as he said, he sort of thought, actually, there's more and more things that I want to include. So I think it worked out being an amazing present from Sigrid and her brothers. And, they've got that amazing book now that you can see behind Sigrid. So that's there forever.
Actually work. So you matched during the pandemic. So you did the interviews with Joseph over the phone. Yes.
Yes, and it's each client, it's what they prefer, and some people prefer just straight telephone, or we can do Zoom. And now I've just recently been visiting a lady in her home, so it's obviously dependent on what's going on at the minute, but there's always options. And the old-fashioned telephone worked great for us, didn't it, Joseph? So yeah, we just had really lovely long conversations and did it that way.
Very good. So as I mentioned, you get a great writer like Karen, but then you also get an editor, and the editor is the glue that makes all these StoryTerrace projects work. And the editor on this project is Laura Burgess. She's also joining us from the UK. Laura.
Hi, happy to be here.
Yes, lovely to have you. So give us an idea a little bit of what the role of the editor is. I know sometimes when people try to hire a writer privately, there's just nobody to keep things accountable, to keep things on schedule. Tell me about being the editor.
Yeah, so I think, as you said, being the editor is that person that's there from the start of the process right to the end of the process. So we have an initial call with the customer or the storyteller to sort of learn a little bit more about their story, and then we look for a writer for them, and we make that link between the writer and the storyteller. And then just throughout the process, we're checking in, making sure that things are moving smoothly. And once we do get to the writing stage and the design stage of the project, we get a bit more involved with sort of editing and liaising with the customer and the designer as well.
And about that design process, so it's one thing to have the words written. There is a draft that goes, so the storyteller gets a chance to look at it to say, well, wait, no, I want to rewrite that part. But also, what about designing what the book's actually going to look like?
Yeah, so so as you said, we have feedback throughout the process to make sure that the storyteller's 100% happy with how everything's going and that the book sounds like them and everything. And then we also make the books look nice. So you have photos which are included in all of our packages, and you can change them and you can add more if you'd like. And then we generate a PDF for you so you can look at it, make sure you're happy with how the book looks. You can have a custom cover if you'd like. So it's all very personalized and produces some really nice looking books.
They certainly do. Joseph, do you have your book there with you? It's on mute.
On mute.
That's all right. I just want to see the book. There you go. Ah, there it is. There's the prize. Very good. Very good. Okay, so Joseph and Sigrid, don't go anywhere because we're going to bring you back in. I do want to bring in another storyteller client. Thana Sakas is here on the US side, actually not that far from where I'm joining here in Atlanta, Georgia, in the US. Thana, you did this for your mother. Tell me about what you were trying to achieve in giving this gift. I think you're on mute. Let's unmute. There you are.
The idea came to me, actually, it came to a woman that used to work for me, and I watched her go through the process with her mother. But at the time, StoryTerrace wasn't in the US. We didn't even know about, I didn't even know if StoryTerrace had started by then. But she had hired a private biographer and she had done this for her mother. And I thought, wow, what an amazing idea. And years later, when it was time for me, when my mother got older, and I thought that's what I want to do for my mother, I called her biographer, who of course had retired by then. And I struggled to find a biographer. And then when I did end up finding somebody just by Googling people, the cost was really prohibitive because they have to get it published on their own. They don't have any kind of an opportunity to leverage volumes or anything like that. And so we put the project off. But then as my mom got into her late 70s, she was living in an apartment by herself in Manhattan. And she would just, every time I called her, she started to talk about stories from her past. It felt like as she got older, it was important for her to start reminiscing. And she said, that's all I have now is my stories. And so she kept talking to me about all these great stories, some of which I heard, some of which were new. And I thought, I've got to do this. There's got to be a way. So I got back online. And at that point, I was really pleased. I was so ecstatic because StoryTerrace, I think, had just come to the US. And so where there wasn't that option before, now there was. And the packet, the opportunity to select a package and how I wanted to work with them, it was just so right on what the money for what I was looking for. And so I talked to my mom about it. She was embarrassed and said, I don't have a story to tell, but she's an amazing story to tell. So I kind of pushed it on her, and I got it for her 80th birthday. And the experience was incredible. Like you talked about before, StoryTerrace, I met with the editor. We talked at length about my mom. And then she gave me 2 biographers. Mom was older at that point, and I think the decision on which biographer to use, I kind of took that off of her to keep it as simple as possible. And I interviewed 2 writers who were both great. I'm thrilled that I picked the one that I did, Selena Solomon. And it's amazing. She met with my mom several times in her apartment in New York. And I'm still to this day amazed that she was able to draw out of my mom what she did, and that she was able to craft it into a story that, you know, frankly, I think a lot of people would love to read, even if they don't know my mom. She did such a great job. And the experience for my mom was the best part of it, for her, but also for the family, because my brothers married late. They had young kids, a couple of young children when my mom was in her 80s. And so the kids haven't been able to connect with my mom as much as they would have when she was younger and could take them places and do things. And for my mom, and she said to me once, you know, I love this, but more than anything, I'm so happy that my grandkids will get to know me through the book, you know, in a way that they're not getting to know me now. And that meant so much to her. And she's had an incredible story and an incredible life. And we were about halfway through the book, maybe a little bit further along, when my mom had a stroke. And we had to put the book on hold. The editor was amazing, because usually, you know, there's a period of time they want you to write the book. The writers have other projects, you know, but they were so flexible with me, and it was really great. It was a tough time for us. And mom got through the stroke, and we got her into a place where she could pick up on the story again. And Selena was great and came back into the picture, and we finished it. And we'd get the drafts of the chapters, and I'd work with my mom on the chapters and send it back and forth. In the interim, my niece, my mother's granddaughter, who was one of her older granddaughters, would meet with her in New York and go through hundreds and hundreds of photographs. And it was like, how do you take her whole life and narrow it down to like 30 photographs for the book? We ended up expanding how much we put in the book. And that was just a bonding experience for the 2 of them. So the whole thing was incredible, I would say. And then even after we got done with the book, you know, my mom said, listen, I love everything, but I'd like to be able to tell sort of what I want to say to my grandkids, like my advice and the learnings in my life, not just my story. So we put an epilogue in the book, and Selena came back in and met with her to talk about that, which was great. And we have this beautiful book here that we just love, and everybody got copies of it. And, you know, the beautiful thing is we got it done when we got it done, because mom had dementia as a result of her stroke, which has only progressed, quite a bit over the last couple of years, which is why she can't be with me on this call today. And I am just so thankful, beyond thankful, that we had this opportunity to do this book. And I know I'm going to sound like an ad, but I just don't think we could have done it if it wasn't for StoryTerrace, which is why I'm doing this today, because I just want to encourage so many people to do this process, because the gift of this book to our family and our grandkids and my mom, it's been priceless. And the experience was great. So
beautiful. I mean, thank you for sharing all of that. The timing part of it, like I guess the message is don't wait, right?
Don't wait.
If you put it off one more time, it would have been too long.
I mean, as soon as I got the call that my mom had a stroke, I was almost, because we were ensconced in this book, and I was like, oh my God, thank God. I mean, it was just thank God. So yeah, don't wait.
You were telling me the other day, so she has the book, and she
what is the book? And she's moved into a different assisted living type of place, and she's got the book sitting on her dresser on like a little stand. And so, you know, new aides and people come in and they're like, wow, is that you? And she says, oh yeah. And so they pick up the book and they start looking at it, and they can sit and read a chapter to her. And it is the most, at that point in your life, all you have are your stories. I mean, she has our family, but this is what makes her feel like a real person again. And it gives her a way of sharing her story. So the book is just, it's just wonderful. And the pride she feels when she looks at it, again, just, I get choked up, but very priceless.
And just like with Joseph, I could talk with you about your mom all day, but could you just tell a little bit of her story? That
Oh, yeah.
When she goes, I don't have a story, like, no, Mom, you have a big story.
She has a huge story.
What's her story?
She grew up in Fredericksburg, Virginia, during a period of heavy duty sort of segregation. And her mother married a Greek immigrant who had just come off the boats and was 18 years older than her. So when my mom's mother, my grandmother, got married, she was disowned by her family. And so there's the counter, you know, you've got segregation going on between the whites and the blacks. And then you had my mom growing up in a southern town where the Greek immigrants were a new thing. And her mother was disowned by her family. And so mom was in school, was called a dirty Greek. And so there's the whole layering of discrimination that was going on both ends of that equation. And, you know, mom growing up, and she ended up going to Duke, which was amazing for her at her time to go to Duke. And she was a real feminist. She wanted to work in business. She didn't want to get married, which is the book is called A Woman Ahead of Her Time, because she really was a feminist in her own right. But her background and how she grew up in the South during that period, and the impact of the discrimination in her family and living through that, really shaped who she is, which I think in turn shaped who I am and who my brothers are. It's just really a phenomenal story. And she met my dad when she went to a Greek dance at the Waldorf Astoria, and he owned a flower shop in Manhattan that we still have in the family after 100 years. And so there's a lot of layering of my dad into this. He passed away many years ago. And so that's important too. And so yeah, she had a great story to tell.
So this would be a case where the daughter was right. Mom
said she was absolutely right.
You're right. Absolutely right.
The daughter was right. Yeah.
So as you can tell, these are different stories. Now these are both examples of adult children giving gifts to their older parents, but that's not the only way to give a gift. I know I've worked on one that was a husband to a wife. People can gift themselves with this. And as part of that, and as I was mentioning earlier, we have these very different writers all around the world. I want to bring in another writer who is here on the US side. Marta Mobley is joining us from Los Angeles. Marta, do we have you?
Yep.
Yes. Tell us about how you work on some really big projects and the kind of StoryTerrace projects you like to help bring to life.
Well, ever since I was a little girl, I've loved storytelling and family history. And I was blessed enough to be a television and film producer for 20 years, primarily turning books into movies for Hallmark Channel and Lifetime. And in the fall of my life, I really wanted to give back to the community. And so I started teaching retirees how to write their own memoirs. And it was just such a healing, empowering process to guide them through the process of finding their own unique stories and how to tell those stories. And that's when I came across StoryTerrace, and I was like, oh my God, I love this company. I want to be part of this company. I want to work for this company. And so I started working for StoryTerrace, I think 3 or 4 years ago, and I've written several projects for them. And because of my cinematic background, I kind of go more of a deeper dive, and the stories I write are longer than a biography because they're character driven, scene by scene. And I think it's the greatest gift because the book shows them that their life mattered. Like there's just something so magical about this touchstone, about having this book, that my life, after it's finished, you're like, oh, my life really did matter. I did make a difference. You know, my stories were meaningful. And so I love sharing people's stories. I love writing people's stories. I like learning about people's stories. I like interviewing people. I just love the whole process of bringing stories to life.
How do you usually do it? Or do you usually do in person, Zoom, over the phone, or?
I've done it
Yes.
all the different ways that the other writer talked about. I've done it FaceTime, over the phone, in person. You know, it just depends on the person's location. And, you know, you just start out, you know, getting to know the person and, you know, interviewing them and asking all sorts of questions, at which point I get an idea and a sense of the theme of their life. And then which stories are the most important to put in the book to make it interesting to not only their families, but also if anybody was to read the book, so that it becomes very cinematic and very exciting and very interesting. So my goal is to make it into what could be made into a movie, you know, because you want the story to be interesting. So, and I think I made many Lifetime and Hallmark movies that people just with ordinary stories share their stories, and it's all how you tell it and the layers. And if the character is, you know, empathetic and you want to follow them on their journey, no matter where they go.
Exactly. That's a really great description. I want to give an example of the different writers you'd be able to pick from. So Marta did a great job explaining the kind of big projects she likes to work on. Let me bring Karen back. Karen, I know you worked on Joseph's, but in general, do you have specific types of StoryTerrace projects that you think you're best at, or you tend to get picked for, or would be great to work on going forward?
I think I've actually done, I think I've done 12 now, and they've been really varied. But there has been a match with people. I think with Joseph, Sigrid felt, because I had family from the Northeast, and that the accent, although Joseph doesn't have a very strong Northeast accent, but that would help. And just, I knew the area, so when we were talking about places, you can visualize it. But equally, it's sort of life experiences as well. So I've written a story about a lady from the Pakistani community who'd lost a child at 9 days, and that was sort of a very sensitive topic to cover. But she wanted to talk about how within her community grief is expected to be hidden, and she's been sort of bucking the trend. Being younger, she took to Instagram and found she got a massive response from people within the community and wider, just wanting to actually be able to talk about their grief and share it, rather than being told, be quiet, just go and have another baby, that kind of thing. So yeah, I've done all sorts. I have had several sort of cradle to grave stories to tell, but then I have had specific ones. And a Ukrainian gentleman I worked with, it was almost like an improvement story. He'd got a sort of philosophical message about weddings, and wanted to talk about the particular 3-stage wedding he had with his wife, which didn't cost a lot of money, because he wanted to get across that the wedding is the beginning of the marriage, not the end of a big planning event process. So yeah, it's the people have all sorts of reasons why they want to get something down, and yeah, it's a very interesting job.
Point is that we have 2 fabulous women writers on this call, but if you feel like the project would be best with a man, older, younger, all different races and life experiences and geography, there is a StoryTerrace writer that will fit that rundown. I want to go back to this idea of what I think is the secret sauce of StoryTerrace, and that is the role of the editor. And I'm going to bring in a US-based editor, Levi Jelks. So I've worked with him personally on a number of my projects. And Levi, you're in LA.
Yes, I am based in LA.
We already decided that you win the Christmas decoration for today, with whether it's real or not, that Christmas tree behind you. Talk about, so people on this call are going to say, someone's going to say, yeah, I want to do this. So what happens? Talk them through, like, what's the next thing that happens once they sign up and commit to doing a project?
Sure thing. So again, like Laura, I am a US-based project editor. So I work with a lot of our US-based clientele. So after that initial call, when the client is first paired with their editor, we kind of talk to them a little bit just to introduce ourselves, ask any questions about their backstory, just to get some good feedback, because as detailed as they can be, that makes it so much easier for the project editor to go off and find their writer. So as Marta explained beautifully earlier, there is no story that is not important. We love all stories here because it's you. It's what you leave behind. It's what you want to donate to the world. And so that's what I like to enhance during that phone call. And I get excited. If the client's excited, I get excited. So after that initial phone call, we go off. We look into our writer pool, which is expanding by the day. We have like dozens of great writers, hundreds of great writers at our disposal. And our job is a little bit harder because we perform a matchmaking service. Out of all those writers, we have to tailor it down to find you that one perfect match. So that's where our job gets a little bit difficult, but it's fun because we get to see how our writers can best match with our clients. And so once that happens, we introduce you, and then you and your writer go off and create the interview dates and times. And as Laura said, throughout the process, we as a project editor will be following up with both the writer and the client just to try to facilitate everything and make sure that everything's moving smoothly. And after my initial phone call with the client, I usually tell them I will be your best friend for the next 3 or 4 months. So we will be talking at least maybe if 1 to 2 times a week. I don't want to say any more because I don't want to scare anybody, but we are just very meticulous in making sure that you're happy with the process, you're happy with the way things are moving forward, and you're getting along well with your writer.
And I have a follow-up question on that. I do want to tell everybody, you all win the award. You're asking the best questions in chat, and we're about to get to those, so just hang with us 1 second. Levi, it's really important. I mean, that is like the most important thing, right? That the client and the writers are matched. I know once upon a time, the original idea of StoryTerrace was that you would match with somebody in your city or close by, but now, kind of thanks to the pandemic and how our world has changed, the world's kind of opened up with who you can match with, yeah?
Exactly. And actually, I would say, despite COVID, that actually did help a little bit with expanding our client choices when it comes to their writers, because as you said earlier, we did a mostly in-person writer matching, and which was basically city-based. However, with remote Zoom calls, your options expand exponentially. So if you have a specific type of writer that you would like to have, like whether they're Christian-based, I saw one comment about Black writers or writers of color. That will definitely expand. We do have like all of those throughout the country and throughout the UK that through the help of remote interviewing, you can have access to.
And let me bring Rutger back on this. Not just UK and US, right? StoryTerrace has helped books come to life. I don't know in how many countries, a lot of places, yeah?
In many places, yeah. I was going to say that I've never heard of, but that's not true. I love learning about other countries. But no, we do work predominantly in English, but we are able to interview in many different languages. Today, a friend of mine called me whether we could interview his dad in the US in Farsi and then write a book in English. And we can do that with many different languages, but we do write in the languages where we can control, and our editors can control the quality of the output, because that would really matters to us.
And on that quality idea, let me bring Levi in one more time. So the interviews happen, the writer interviews, the draft is written. I know a lot of clients I've worked with like, well, wait, but there's a control thing, right? You get a chance to see it. It's not like you just have your interview and then you're handed a book. You get a chance to see this.
Yes, you will have several chances to, we do have a revision process. So once you get the draft of your book, you'll get an outline first and then a chapter sample, just to take a look at that, just to see like if the story flows based on the outline, how you want it to flow, if all the topics are being covered. And then once you approve that, the writer will go off, write your first draft. You will have a chance to take a look at that, of course, have a revision stage with your writer after that, just to go over any notes that you want for the for any changes such as locations or names, or if just it doesn't flow the way you want it to. That's the main core of like our writer client interaction, to make sure that this book is perfect for you. So after that revision stage is over, the writer will write the final draft, and then you'll have to have another look at that, approve it, and then we'll go to my favorite stage, which is the design stage, where we get to put all your photos, your cover, and everything together just to make your book just beautiful.
I think Mel makes a good point in the chat. And Mel, I don't know if you're a man or woman, but I'm just gonna say Mel has already done a lot of work and really wants to write their own biography. It doesn't have to be a soup to nuts. There can be kind of a coaching, helping, editing. There's a different layer, right? There's a different option for doing that.
For the consulting and everything?
Right, well, like let's say somebody has taken a stab at it and just knows it's not quite there. They don't want to sit down, they're not starting from ground zero. They haven't not done anything, but they need help structuring it,
Yes.
turning it into a book, maybe cleaning it up a little bit, maybe helping with the storytelling, but they don't need to start at zero.
Exactly. We do have services for customers who are coming in with their own drafts full. Like I've had increased customers come to me saying, I have a draft already. I just need someone to take a look at it and clean it up. And we do offer copy editing services as well. So that's another thing for anyone who's coming in with a full draft already. We can take care of you on that as well and just make sure that it's cleaned up, it looks nice, and that you're ready to push forward with the book.
Very good. Well, I think this would be a good time to open it up for questions. Like I said, we've been getting some really good questions on there, and that's why I've asked all of our panelists to stick around. I'm just going to go to where we're going with that. While we do that, quickly, I want to bring in Karen and Marta again. Have either of you ever worked on a project like that where you're not starting from zero, where you're actually helping somebody who already had a head start?
Yeah, I've had two where they've kind of tried to write it themselves and then thought I need a bit of input. So it was kind of a process of taking what they'd already got and trying to keep many of the words as we could, but just get it so that it was flowing better, and there was a back and forward process. That lady was actually writing she was writing a semi-fictional story based on her life. So it kind of there was elements of her real life, so it was like semi-autobiographical, but then she wanted to bring in a kind of fairy tale, and she wanted it to be quite like Bridgerton, so we had a really like amazing romantic ending, which is what she wanted. So yeah, so that was really nice to work on.
What a great thought. You could write your own. If you don't like how your life story is going, rewrite that.
Yeah.
Okay, first question is from Amanda. She asked a question that I think every single one of the StoryTerrace clients I've worked with stresses about and thinks about, like, what's the title? I think the title kind of shows up, but Amanda would like to know from Sigrid and Joseph, and also from Thana, how did you decide what the titles were for these books? Joseph, did you pick the title?
I'm off mute, Dan.
Yes, yes, I picked the title. It came to me in the middle of the night, lying in bed, and I thought Facets of a Diamond Geyser fitted me very well. You did ask me earlier about the Queen. I set up the first residence for people with polio to be taught to trade and to live in, and to be taught to trade so that you could go on the open market on equal terms with other people. And for that, I was awarded, given an award by the Queen. And on the way, I had the pleasure of meeting Prince Charles and Camilla. So it was a great honor to me for that, to
We're
get that.
We're in the presence of a hero
At
here.
Buckingham Palace as well.
That's amazing. See, Joseph, I told you we could talk to you all hour. Thana, how did you pick or did your mom, or did Selena, the writer?
Selena had some suggestions, and I think honestly the title just came to me because it was such a theme of the book. I mean, she was just kind of a renegade in her own way, and she was. I think we've always thought of my mom as a woman ahead of her time. So it just came to me, and Mom, just everybody was just like, oh my God, that's just it. So that part was.
Remind us what it is.
It's a woman. It's called A Woman Ahead of Her Time.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, because she was. I mean, she went to a university before a lot of women did. She had a job in marketing before a lot of women did. My dad proposed. She was like, I don't want to get married. You know, if I don't like it, I'm going to get a divorce, which nobody ever said in the 50s. So she was kind of a woman ahead of her time. So it just came to us.
Samaya has a question. Levi, you kind of were touching on this, but I think it's really important. I want to go back to it. Are writers matched in a way that there's cultural sensitivity and that's taken into account?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, we do have a wide range of of writers who are different cultures and different backgrounds, different religions. And once we talk to our client and we do get that sense in that first intro call of what they want, we immediately tailor that to the writer. So that is taken into serious consideration.
Very good. Rutger, I want to bring you in because I know people are thinking about doing this for Christmas. Is it too late? And what happens? You don't just go online and put in your credit card and it's all over. You actually get a thing, right? If you do it by a certain time, there's an actual physical gift to present.
Yes. It's definitely too late to write a book for Christmas.
Yeah, well, that's true. No book. No.
We can be very quick, but that's not going to work.
Yeah.
And we actually like people to take their time and to really enjoy the process. But no, until the 17th, we're able to send around welcome boxes, gift boxes that people can either send directly to the person they're gifting it to, or we can send it to them so they can bring it if they're meeting during Christmas.
Yes, let's be clear. This book is not getting written by Christmas. All of us writers on the call going, whoa, hold on. That's not happening. But Laura, what is a realistic time frame? I guess it depends on the size of the project and availability of both sides, but how do these tend to go?
So we sort of tend to say to allow between 4 and 5 months for a project. As you say, it can be very varied depending on the customer and their timelines. And as I think as Thana touched on earlier, if life events come up where it means that you need to have a bit of a break or you need to readjust, we're very happy to take that on board. But yeah, in general, if you're looking to do it for a birthday or an anniversary or something, allow at least sort of 4 to 5 months before that date in order for everyone to have enough time to enjoy the process properly.
So every family has a story. Some are just about one person. Jermaine wrote in, and Jermaine said that he would like to tell the story of his large polyamorous family. So I'm assuming that means over generations, there's more than one spouse. There's a story there. I know there is. How does it work? I'll have Rutger jump in on this, and Levi and Laura. It doesn't just have to be like just one person's story, right? You tackle all different types of stories.
Not at all. The sort of the next standard thing we do are couples books, for example, for wedding anniversaries. We do those where we interview basically the couple separately and together to get the different ways, the way they speak, and the writer gets to hear that perspective. But for projects that are more complex, could be about a family business where we need to interview many different people, or we need to read materials in advance, or maybe there's already a book written 25 years ago about the family business. We can do that as well. For example, the example here about the family, we would be interviewing whoever the client would like us to. We would have a lead point person who can make the final decisions with the writer and the editor about how the book will come out.
I know I'm wrapping up one that is a family of 4 generations, and we did like 25 interviews. It's like the project that will not end, but it's ending. It finally is. But yeah, so that's possible. Marta, something big like that sounds like something that you might take on.
Yeah.
But just like if you could explain, let's say you did match with that, how you would handle a project like that.
Yeah, I mean, usually most of the projects start out smaller, but then once you dive in and you start interviewing, you realize, oh my God, there's so much wonderful material and so many wonderful stories. And so they tend to grow bigger. I started one project, Mary McMillan, the mother of physical therapy, and originally it was going to be about 20,000 words, and it ended up being 65,000 words because it just grew into such an incredible story over World War I, World War II, and her story was just, it was like the, what Florence Nightingale was for nursing, she was for physical therapy. So it just grew. I tend to prefer longer and the more rich details because I like to go more into story, but there are lots of great biographies too, because you want family history, you want the basic stories to be documented, also. So I worked on all different kinds of stories, from, A Token of Faith, which was more of an inspiring story, which with messages. So you can tell your story in 7,500 words up to 100,000 words. It's limitless. It just depends on how the story evolves.
I think there might be some writers who are joining us today that are having their moment. Marta, you mentioned it. I saw an ad for StoryTerrace too, where you go, wait, my skills, I want to be working with StoryTerrace. Are there room for more writers, and how do they get involved? Rutger or Levi, you want to take that?
Yeah, Levi already answered it a little bit. We do take on new writers. I mean, we're growing as a company. We're very lucky that the word is getting out there. And so we take on writers. Writers apply to us generally through our website. And sometimes we also we have clients who have very specific needs. For example, we need a Farsi writer in Nashville. We don't have that person yet. We will find him or her.
If you need it, we'll find it. And getting back to this idea of all the different types of books, some people want to write the book for themselves, for their grandchildren, for their family. Some people want to publish the book. Rutger, how does that work if you want to become a published author and sell, let's say, on Amazon?
Yeah, a number of our clients would like to not just keep the book in the family and just keep it private, but they would like to self-publish it. And we can help them. We have different packages where we just help them to get it online, get it into Amazon, a few other digital bookstores, or we can help them to promote the book full service. So there's different packages. Again, with fixed cost, everything we do at StoryTerrace, we like to be very transparent about what we do and how much it costs. So even though we're not throwing around prices here on this call, actually on our website, and when we talk to you, it is very clear how much you would pay for a certain service and what you get back.
That's a good point. All roads lead back to the website, right? You're going to find more about the packages. You can find all the writers. If you want to just shop writers, you can find all of our bios on there and learn about just about everybody here on this call. And also, if you're a writer who wants to apply, it all happen right there. Levi, with the editors, I don't think I can say too much how this is the secret sauce of StoryTerrace.
Right, because, and I do like the way that you use that term secret sauce, because with the editors, we are, along with the writers, we are working extremely closely with the client. So our motivation and our enthusiasm just helps them move along and helps keep them excited throughout the process. And I think that's something that a lot of our clients really appreciate. And just knowing me personally, like, I love working with people and I love learning new stories. So when I'm paired with a client and I relay that information to them and I help them get their book out to print and get them to design, it just makes the experience so much richer just for them and for me as well. And, I know I explained earlier that at the end, I've had clients reach out to me and just say, I don't think I would have gotten through this without you helping me along the way and keeping me motivated and keeping me organized and scheduled. And I can't tell you how much that really just touches me and makes me motivated for this job and keep doing what I do.
You are a special one. Scott has a good point. I think Scott wants to know what the actual gift box looks like. And I do think we have a slide that shows that can show what gets sent. CB, if you can put that up to show people. Working on that one. And while he does that, let me go on to what is kind of a bittersweet question. Michael writes in and says, my wife's sister died prematurely this year and I would like to write her life story. Well, that is very, very sweet. Michael, we're going to answer that in a second. So Rutger, so they would get a box like the red box there on the screen, correct?
Yes, that's right, which has a StoryTerrace branded notebook, a pen, and an explanation of how the process will work in it. So yeah, people can sort of start taking notes in their daily routines and things they want to talk about ultimately with their writer.
That's a fabulous idea. Going back to this idea from Michael Phillips, how do we write a story for somebody who's not here anymore? Marta, that sounds a little bit like what you were talking about with the book you were just mentioning, that woman wasn't here, right? You were dealing with somebody who had already passed.
Yeah, you know, that's the funnest part, is the research. If you can't find it, the information from the person, then you can go through their emails, their letters, their correspondence. In that time, there was a lot of documents, a lot of letters, journals, and just family history. I spent a lot of time on ancestry.com, and even going to the World War I and World War II sites. You can find so much information researching family history. So a lot of it I found there too. Her great niece hired me to write the book, and it was a collective journey of just searching for all these wonderful treasures and stories. And I actually found a picture of Mary McMillan in a parade in World War II in front of I can't think of it, down in Virginia, the hospital there. And it's amazing just the research that can go into, even though the person's not here, and interviewing, you know, family and friends also.
So even if it wasn't someone who had this grand career or left a huge digital or historical footprint, they left a love footprint, right? And so
Right.
heart prints. And so you could do a project like that by interviewing the people who were around her and who loved her and tell her story that way.
Exactly.
That would be a good way to do it. Here's kind of well, these are all interesting questions, but David writes in and says the story he's thinking of talking about or telling has, a lot of it would have to be confidential. So this is obviously probably something that's not going to be published, but wants to tell the story, but not to completely tell the story to too many people. Levi, how would that be handled?
Well, that's definitely a conversation that, you know, needs to come up during that intro call between the client and the editor, the project editor. And, you know, a lot of our clients want to keep everything hush hush. Usually we use fake names if they want to keep things confidential. We do ask that, we're not lawyers here at StoryTerrace, so we do ask that, you know, if you are telling something that might have legal ramifications, that you check on all those before coming to your project editor, before starting with your writer. And, you know, just, we are a very discreet company. If you want to keep this on the hush hush, all rights go to you. StoryTerrace will not be advertising any of this, you know, on our website. So we will keep things definitely confidential if that's the way you want it to keep it.
Good point. Rutger, when the book is written, who owns the book? Who owns the contents?
The client. We don't do anything with these books without our client's permission. The only thing we ask clients when they want to publish their book is to sign an agreement that that they make sure that they take care when they do so, and that could include having a legal read done, which is what Levi also alluded to, and we can help people to set that up for them.
Very good. Let's go to the next slide. We're getting to the top of the hour. Again, as we go to that slide, a reminder, if you sign up by December 17th, we can get you a physical gift box that you can present, or it can be sent to that person if you're not in the same city. So the next step, if you're interested, would be to schedule a free consultation where you actually get to talk to one of our StoryTerrace people, maybe somebody like Levi or Laura, where they would talk about, get a better idea of what your story is and give you a more personalized idea and approach of how it would all come together and who some potential writers might be. Very good. And we're going to I want to give another chance if there anybody else is out there and has asked questions that we didn't. Oh, how do they actually order? Rutger, they go to the website, right?
Yes, you can order directly from the website, StoryTerrace.com. You can browse through our packages and pricing part of the website, and you can just choose what level of writer you want and the size of the package and take it from there. Or you can give us a call, or we can give you a call back as well.
I don't think we actually addressed the idea that we have different levels of writers. How does that work, Rutger?
So we have 3 levels of writers, junior, senior, and premium, and that has to do with their experience and where they have been published. So I'll keep it short probably at this stage.
Very good. Well, I think our on-air webinar part, this we're going to let our guests go if they need to go, but we do have our StoryTerrace staff standing by. They're in the chat room. Perhaps you have a question that didn't get answered, or you've thought of a question now. You can go ahead and get in there, and we're going to stay in there. The StoryTerrace people are. But for our panelists, I can't thank you enough for sharing your story. Joseph, I can't let you go without asking, when is your actual 100th birthday?
My birthday, 29th of June, 98. The 29th of June is my actual birthday, when I'll be 100.
Are there big
want to say, can I say that I've had an enormous amount of satisfaction writing this book. It's given me a great deal of pleasure, and it's amazing what comes back in your mind when you're thinking about things in the past. I recommend it to anybody.
You are a treasure, Joseph. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you've contributed to the world. This webinar wouldn't be what it's been without you. And early happy birthday. Never too soon to say happy 100th birthday. Thank you to Joseph. Sigrid, good luck keeping up with your dad. I don't know how to do that.
I'm hoping I've got his genes.
We all do. I'll have what he's doing.
She's got your genes.
Exactly. And Thana, thank you for sharing your mother's tender story, and remarkable story. We really appreciate you coming on. To our writers, I do want to say both Marta and Karen are active writers on StoryTerrace. We have a whole bunch of writers, but they are definitely taking on new projects. So if you heard something that they said that you thought, oh, that and they in particular would be great to work with, tell that to your StoryTerrace contact when you get in touch. I know they would love to hear from you. And Rutger, thank you for creating this, because as you can see, you've created joy and helped people get past the woulda, coulda, shoulda of not telling their story. So thank you, everybody. And again, we're all going to be on the chat if you need to, but I'm going to let the panelists go. Thank you, everyone. And Merry Christmas.
Great. Thank you. Happy holidays.